All right, what's up, guys? Tim Sykes here. I'm actually giving a challenge webinar as I'm doing this video lesson. This is how I make my challenge students forcefully watch these video lessons, because today has a lot of good lessons. So many runners, so many big short squeezes where you had plenty of time to see them ahead of time. Although it's not an exact science. I actually had the challenge students say it's not an exact science. If at any time during this video you understand that, leave a comment and say it's not an exact science. But it's also not as random as most people think. Most people see these big percent gainers and they're like, oh, it's so random, you don't know anything. Yes, you do. There are indicators that can increase your odds of success. And even though I'm not trading perfectly, literally at all this week, I've been a little too early on some runners. I've been a little too late. Today is really the first day of the week, and today's a Friday as I'm filming this, where I really feel like I was on the right, part of these things. And at the same time, I still had a loss. I still didn't capture the meat of the move. So don't feel bad if you miss them. Don't feel bad if you're too early, if you're too late. The key is watching these, ideally real time. As I've been saying, wake up earlier, because a lot of these plays, the best time to trade them, the best time to watch them is 4, 5, 6, 7 a.m. Eastern. Filming this at 11 a.m. Eastern, midday, and literally, like, you're just not getting the runs and you're not getting the volatility that we saw pre-market. Some people are saying, Tim, you used to say don't trade pre-market. You have to adapt. Somebody said, Tim, you didn't used to use the VWAP. Now you do. You have to adapt. Someone else said, Tim, you used to short sell. Now you don't. You have to adapt. That's what trading is all about. That's why I make so many videos and do these webinars. And frankly, I need to train your brain, because many of you don't want to adapt. You want this to be an exact science. And that's a problem, because you're never going to succeed if you think this is an exact science and you try to make it an exact science. Today really started out with watching EVAX. By the way, yesterday, EVAX was on the XGPT watch list. It was a play to watch for today. Sure enough, it did spike. I would highly recommend you use XGPT. This is our AI software. Leave an email, admin@timothysykes.com, if you have any questions about XGPT. But this was a big spiker yesterday afternoon, after hours, from basically the 290s up to the 6s. So it's 100% after hours runner. It holds the majority of its gains after hours. Today, pre-market at 4 a.m. didn't really do much. But then right here at 4:20 a.m., nice spike from the 4s to the 6s. Although then it uses 6 as resistance, not just at 4:20, 4:30 a.m., but also here at 5 a.m. I'm buying on the dip. I'm thinking that it could retest these highs in the 6s. I thought it was going to be a 7 a.m. spiker. Was it a 7 a.m. spiker? No, it was not. It did absolutely nothing at 7 a.m. and I actually took a loss. And this was really disappointing for me, because I thought that I was onto something. But, it happens. I even said it in chat. Let me scroll up just so you understand. I had an inkling that I was in the wrong one. At 6:52 a.m., I said ALUR looks better than EVAX. Maybe I chose the wrong one. And sure enough, I was right that I chose the wrong one. ALUR, by the way, big percent gainer after hours yesterday, Thursday night, from the 3s all the way up to the 8s, and it held the 6s. The news is they have this weight loss therapy, the GLP, the whole Wegovy and Manjaro, all that stuff. It's holding its highs. But this is the problem, where sometimes if you hold overnight, you don't get anything. It closed at 6:50. By 4:10 a.m., the first 10 minutes of the day, it doesn't go up like some people thought it would overnight. 6:50 down to 5:50-ish. So you're down $1 a share in the first 10 minutes of trading. But here's the cool thing. It proves that it can really keep going, because it spikes here at around 4:08 a.m. from 5:50 up to 8. So when a stock can spike 50% in 10 minutes at 4 a.m., 4:20 a.m., it has potential. And again, doesn't really do much most of pre-market, but this is when a lot of retail brokers open at 7 a.m. Look at the volume. I was in EVA thinking that was going to be the 7 a.m. spiker. I chose wrong. Although EVA did spike at 7:20 a.m. I was 20 minutes off. And again, this is where the whole thing where I say, leave a comment below and say that this is not an exact science. I was 20 minutes off. I took a loss on EVAX, and then 20 minutes later, it spikes up from basically the 530s, 540s where I was buying, and it spikes up in 2 minutes to 750, 550 to 750. That's a nice 50% runner in 2 minutes. And I was raging in the challenge webinar earlier saying, like, it's ridiculous that so many people try to make 10, 20% per year in these, like, you know, mutual funds and like the S&P 500, and they think that's how you get ahead with a small account. Let alone if you have, let's say, $5,000 or $10,000 to your name and you're trying to make, God forbid, 20% per year on $10,000, which would be an amazing year, you're only making $2,000 over the course of the entire year as the US dollar and inflation goes to shit, right? So if you have the choice, you use the $10,000 on plays like this, because not only did this spike 50% in 2 minutes, it actually went from the 5s to the 11s inside of an hour. And this is what I'm talking about, guys. Wake up earlier, get unhealthy, get fat, get rich, get better prepared, because it's the 4, 5, 6 a.m. spikers and then also the 7 to 8 a.m. spikers. Look at this. If you miss this initial spike, you have a nice kiss off the VWAP here right at 7:42 a.m. And this is when, you know, if some short seller was still short after this, which I don't know why they ever would be, but I know a lot of toxic short sellers and they have severe psychological issues. So they like pain, right? They're built backwards. They're betting on lower prices and they actually like pain. We need to teach the short sellers pain is bad, guys. Stress is bad. Losses are bad, but they seem to enjoy it. If they were short here and they didn't cover, they're trying to say, look, it's fading, it's fading, it's fading. Maybe the squeeze is over. Instead, it holds the VWAP, and then from 7:40 a.m. up to 7:57 a.m., 18 minutes of pain for any short seller. And you see this specifically in 2 minutes from 8:20 up to 11. This is max panic. There was 600,000 shares. You can see the little volume here. 600,000 shares traded this minute. I don't think there's many buyers buying up here when it goes up $3 a share. The majority of this are short sellers just getting their asses handed to them, and they're trying to cover because they don't know how high it's going to go. They think it might go to 20. Obviously, they're completely wrong. They shouldn't cover at all, but they also shouldn't have shorted at all either. As a long, you can buy at any time during here. So for me, I missed it in the beginning. I took the $500 loss begrudgingly, but I actually made back some money here in the low 8s to the high 8s. So it's not that bad. You know, I didn't do that great, but I still finished up. And then I actually did better on ALUR. This was just beautiful, where ALUR was so volatile, because not only was it a 7 a.m. spiker here from, you know, the 7s all the way up to 12, mind you, this is 7 a.m., this is 7:10 a.m. So the thing spikes $4.50 a share in 10 minutes, just to give you an idea of like how you have to, you know, really be on this and try to be prepared ahead of time. But then also it has like kind of this double bottom in here at 10-ish. And in 3 minutes, it goes from 10 to 14. And then some short sellers, I'm sure, were trying to salvage the situation. It's downtrending. And this is max pain for the short sellers, because then from 7:46 a.m. to 7:51 a.m., 5 minutes, it goes from the 13s to the 18s. And then it consolidates well. And then again, another 3 minutes of pain here from 16 up to 20. And then it double tops. And then just to rub it into any short seller who shorted and covered along the way, because this is scary for a stock to go from 7 to 20. This is all by 9 a.m. They did an offering right here because they're a scumbag company. So the short sellers aren't wrong about the fundamentals. They're just wrong with their strategy, philosophy, and way of life. This is a beautiful short squeeze. I have literally dozens of students who made $2, $3, $5, $6, $7, $10 a share. Really go into the chat room. So many of you, congratulations. But you cannot overstay. I always say expect the worst and you'll never be disappointed. These scumbags did an offering right at 9:30 a.m. and they tanked the stock. And now it's kind of just been in nowheresville ever since the offering. And EVAX actually tried to come back and faded. NVNI in case you weren't happy with just, two big spikers pre-market, NVNI was a nice spiker right at the open from the 2s to the 4s. Comes back down to the 3s, actually double tops in the 4s, and now we're fading a little bit. I've been going over this here, like it's not impossible for a stock to go below the VWAP and cross over. This is just very low odds. If you are going to be in this kind of a play, I really like it on the way up before it tanks from, 4 down to 3. This is too big of a tank. Like this usually leads to further fading. If you're ever unsure whether you're on the front side or the back side, you want the stock to hold near the highs, right? Like EVAX, the whole time that it was running up, like, yeah, it spiked and consolidated, but it's still, consolidated here at 6, whereas before it was hanging in the 5. So this consolidation zone is higher than this consolidation zone, and that led to the max panic here. ALUR, same kind of thing, where pre-markets, it's in the 7s, you got the 7 a.m. spike up to 12, and then it consolidates in the 10s. Right? So even though this is a $2 a share drop off the highs, it's really like 20%. And then in 3 minutes, look at it, goes from 10 up to 14. So as long as you have a stock that holds near its highs, ideally above the VWAP, shorts are just going to get wrecked. And, again, my heart does go out for the short sellers. I always say, thank you, short sellers, for your sacrifice, because I can only imagine some short sellers who got squeezed here, and then the thing tanks literally from 18 down to 9 in like 3 minutes. All of this upside, all of this spiking was for nothing when the company did an offer. I think they did it at what, like $6 a share? Anyways, I think it was $6 a share. But the point is that they're just scams. They're scums, they're scams, it's nasty. NVNI is dropping now too, by the way. But you had a nice pre-market spike on ALUR, a nice pre-market spike on EVA. NVNI was right near the market open. Oh, I forgot about ELAB. This was an 8 a.m. spiker. And again, you can see this giant spike up here from 2, and it's kind of choppy in here in the 3s, but then you just get max panic. This is why I love short sellers. This is why I always say thank you, short sellers, for your sacrifice. This thing is spiking on air. It doesn't deserve to go up. And, sure enough, it's already faded off of its highs, nearly $2 a share from the 5s to the 3s. But right here where it's choppy and the shorts think they have it won, they think this is going to fade all day, that opens it up to this giant run up. This is at 8:24 a.m. This is 8:32 a.m. 8 minutes. And it squeezes from 312 up to 480. Okay, this is a nearly 60% run. Going back to the whole BS of the S&P 500 and 10 to 20% per year, this is basically like 3 or 4 years of the S&P 500 in 10 minutes. If we're going to go percentage terms, ALUR, let's say it was cool that it spiked at 7 a.m., but you weren't 100% sure. Let's say you just buy the breakout here at 12, okay? 12 to 18. The breakout here is at 7:39 a.m. This is 7:50 a.m. So 10 minutes and the stock goes from 12 to 18. 10 minutes to make 50%. This is 2, 3, 4 years of the S&P 500 in 10 minutes. Understand, I get it that the S&P 500 and the 10 to 20% is good for people who don't want to actively trade. It's good for passive income over time. And it's especially good for people with big accounts where, you're just basically banking because you have a big account and you have enough to invest and, ride the wave of America. But if you have a small account, you need to focus on plays like this. Some people will say, well, Tim, yeah, it's good that it spiked up big here and then it tanked here. Yes. Okay. Going back to my whole comment before, it's not an exact science. You don't know when they're going to do an offering. They can do an offering at any time during this spike. But at the same time, if you expect it, it's really difficult to overstay. Before the offering was even done, this thing had already topped. It's not like they did the offering right at the top. It had already basically double topped, or you can even say triple top going back here at 18.5, and it got to 20 and then 19. Like, it's just up too much. Even at 10, it's still up 200%. Here it's up 400%. That's just too much for, this tiny little company. So again, like, I didn't trade it great, none of these plays, but my wins are bigger than my losses. And more importantly, understand, I trade with a small account. I trade for charity. I want to show you the process, okay? You literally have to be blind not to see these patterns, or you have to sleep in. Some people are waking up at, 8, 9, 10 a.m. Eastern, and you're like, what did I miss? You missed everything. You missed all the biggest runners. Today's a Friday. There's probably still going to be runners into the close and after hours, so the game isn't over. But right now, the best wins every single day are at 4, 5, 6 a.m. Even VNCE yesterday, where, I had a loss yesterday. I was also traveling, but I was a little too early on VNCE. And this is kind of the frustrating thing. Let me get rid of Fannie Mae because I'm not interested in trading that. VNCE was a big percent winner yesterday. And you can see it was very, very choppy. But, at 4 a.m., it was up to 4, comes down to 3, bounces around here. If you just want to buy the breakout, this was an 8:30 a.m. breakout. It was not very clean, okay? So don't feel bad if you missed it or if you cut losses or, anything. But, this is a nice breakout over the intraday high here at 4, goes up to 470, comes back down to 4. So even if you miss this initial breakout, look at this. It kisses off 4. So right here, this is 9:40 a.m. up to 10:15 a.m. So yes, very, very choppy, but you have a nice $1.50 a share off of the support. And then you can see it cracks 4. When it cracks 4 late day, it comes down and then actually even got to 4 right around the open today before fading. So, certain levels are important. It's good to look at these levels. VNCE, I had a small loss, but, I was on the right track and I was early yesterday. Why was I early? Because I was late the days before. ASST was my biggest winner on, Tuesday. And this was a beautiful runner. And I think I bought it right in here. And it already touched $1. Yeah. And I was buying here on the dip around 80 cents a share. And I sold it at 90 cents a share. And it got up to $1.40. Not that I'm going to hold through this. Really, best case scenario was $1.20 for me. But again, this is the same 50% that I'm using as an example. You can make 50% on these plays inside of an hour or two if you position yourself properly. 50% sounds crazy to outsiders, people who hate on penny stocks. They say penny stocks are a scam. They say I'm a scam. I'm used to it. But there's just example after example after example. And then even let's say you missed the entire first day on ASST. Look at this. Once you have this resistance here at 120, or, if you use the all-time high of 140, either way, you're buying at 120 or 140 and it goes up to 180. So you have to realize that there's multiple spikes. You can buy them on the way up. ASST, very, very choppy. NVNI, very, very choppy. Or not NVNI, VNCE. Oh, look, NVNI just kissed off the VWAP a little bit too. Let's see if it can do more, although I wouldn't expect too much because it's up 145%. And its normal market hours is not pre-market. But I understand if you miss some of these plays. But then there's really just some easy ones like ALUR and EVAX. We'll see what the market gives us every day. The market can change. You can miss these plays. But again, if you're watching, if you understand where to look, all of these are big percent gainers before I buy them, before I alert them. I just realized that they have more legs and they can run up even more. GOEV is trying to spike. Oh, actually it made a new high and then faded again. When I started the webinar, I said it was at 80 cents and I thought that 80 cents would be the top. It actually got up to 89 cents and then right back down. It's up 113%. That's really tough. RNAS was also spiking earlier. Let's see what that's doing. Look at this. Look how far this went. This was crazy yesterday where it went from the 4s and it squeezed all the way up. You see these halts. I really feel for the short sellers because some shorts were shorting in here where it was choppy in the 6s and it got all the way up to the 12s before fading. Long story short, it's spiker after spiker. Not an exact science. Leave that comment underneath this video. But with all these plays, you're trying to take the meat of the move. You're trying to take a little piece along the way. And, if you do it right, like I'm doing lately, your wins are bigger than your losses. You're learning and, life is good. You don't have to take big risks. You don't have to stress yourself out like a short seller. You can just try to ride the wave. And I think that that's a good way to be. Leave a comment. Let me know if you've learned anything, if you understand what I'm saying. Every day, there's 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes even 10, 50, or 100% spikers. So don't give me any of that 10 to 20% per year crap. There's too much opportunity if you focus on this niche.